President Buhari congratulates Ademola Adeleke as governor-elect of Osun State.
Osun electorate joyful over successful conduct and outcome of Saturday's governorship election.
I give all glory to Almighty God for what happened yesterday.
For INEC, I give them thumbs up, and the security too. I mean, the helicopters were over my house.
Ademola was announced, which I say, Imole.
Katsina Police Command arrests Kuje escapee and 4 suspected kidnappers.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall review the just concluded Osun governorship election.
Another off-season election has been done and dusted, and that is the Osun State Governorship election, which produced Ademola Adeleke, candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, as winner and now governor-elect of Osun State.
That's true, Kyria. Now, the governor-elect of Osun State is fondly called the dancing senator, renowned for his dance steps, especially when he represented the Osun West Senatorial District between 2017 and 2019. He has now literally danced his way to the Osun Government House by polling 403,371,000 votes. And of course, he defeated the incumbent Ademola of the All Progressives Congress, who recorded 375,027 votes.
Yes, no doubt it was a major political upset, because it is a clash of gladiators, but the ruling APC succumbed to the PDP in the 2-horse race in Osun. Those who know the politics of Osun will tell you that the 2-time governor of the state and current Minister of Interior, Rauf Aregbesola, despite being an APC stalwart, withdrew his support for the incumbent governor Oyetola after they fell apart some time ago.
Again, Kyrian, that's correct. But was it a political upset, really? I mean, considering what happened in 2018?
Yeah,
2018. I mean, that's, some persons will tell you that if 2018 had run its natural course, Adeleke might have won that election.
Exactly, because the incumbent governor won based on certain political maneuvering and technicalities.
Absolutely. They said that the margin of lead was about 300 and something, under 400 votes. Just 400 votes, and then of course they then had some supplementary election in a secluded area, and that was what turned the tide against Adeleke.
The deal was done.
That's right. But you were talking earlier about the clash between Aregbesola and of course the incumbent, and invariably Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Of course, Aregbesola, who had been in a long-drawn battle with Oyetola, was absent in the campaigns and even in the election on Saturday. And while reacting to the APC and Oyetola's loss via his Twitter handle on Sunday, Aregbesola, a Muslim, quoted a Bible verse from Daniel chapter 4, verse 17, where he emphasized that the Most High ruleth in the affairs of men.
Ademola Adeleke clinched the highest votes in 17 local government areas, leaving his closest challenger, the incumbent governor, trailing with 13 local government areas. Now that the battle has been won and lost, it is commendable that so far the post-election environment has been calm, peaceful, and devoid of any agitation following the declaration of the results by the state coalition officer.
Again, Kyria, that's very correct. Now, the election has been adjudged, has been largely peaceful, with reports that Osun voters got some polling units really crowded, and they stood by their votes until they were counted. Now, the electronic transmission of the results from the ward levels to the State Collation Center, as provided for in the Electoral Act 2022, has also been a game changer, according to observers, for the elections and hopefully for the country. And this has greatly boosted the confidence of voters and the credibility of the voting process.
No doubt about that, Kingsley, because now INEC record, revealed that out of almost 2 million registered voters for the election, 820,218 voters were accredited on election day, representing a 42.37% turnout, which is a marginal improvement over the voter turnout of 41.34% recorded in 2018 Osun governorship election.
And in terms of vote trading, observers in their interim reports indicated that there was discrete vote buying in the election. Again, that's another major challenge. And this, of course, is in contrast with the brazen vote buying in the recent Ekiti State governorship election. And the discretion exercised in Osun, is being said, was on account of the presence of watchful anti-graft security personnel.
And there were reports, however, that the EFCC arrested at least 3 suspects over allegations of vote buying in the Osun election. The suspects who were allegedly trading votes for cash were apprehended through intelligence around Ward 2, Unit 2, Ifalodu Street at Isela Osun in Osogbo.
Now, one wonders if such suspects are eventually let off the hook and how long it will take the law enforcement agents to prosecute them and let the courts prove their guilt or innocence. Well, we're yet to know the fate of those who were arrested for vote trading in the Ekiti governorship election last month, even though there was an initial report that they had been taken to court, I think about a week or 2 after the arrests were made. So it all depends on what the trial stage is for those who were arrested for see and buy in Ekiti.
All right, and that is one of several issues that we will look into on Good Morning Nigeria today as we review the Osun State governorship election. I am Kirian Umaye. Welcome to another episode of the program.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I joined my colleague Kirian to also welcome you to the program. It's a lovely Monday morning here in nation's capital. As always, we are live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, in the course of the program, we have our supplementary segments. Those will include newspaper review and business. For now, the highlights of the news with Nolene Abel Ame. Morning, Nolene.
Good morning, Kingsley and Kirian. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the morning news. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has declared Senator Ademola Adeleke of the People's Democratic Party as the winner of the July 16 Osun State governorship election.
I declare that Adeleke, Ademola, Jackson, Nuruddin, on behalf of the chairman of INEC of PDP, having satisfied the requirements of the law, is hereby declared the winner, and he is returned elected.
Following the successful conclusion of the governorship election, PDP supporters and residents of Osun State are in celebration mood over the victory of Senator Ademola Adeleke, the governor-elect.
I'm very happy. I give all glory to Almighty God for what happened yesterday. People in this story by us yesterday, we appreciate all people of Osun State. If I cannot even express this, because in me, within me now, I'm so happy.
With this, it seems the people have clearly spoken. For INEC, I give them thumbs up, and the security too. I mean, the helicopters were over my house like 3 since Wednesday or Thursday. I knew, much as that people to the uninformed will see that as trying to intimidate the public, but they came out. Retired civil servant, serving civil servant that look, we must protect our votes.
Osun State Governor and candidate of the All Progressives Congress APC, Adebola Oyetola, says he has taken cognizance of the results of the governorship election in the state as announced by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Sunday morning. Oyetola, however, notes that the party will be responding appropriately after studying the results and consulting with critical stakeholders of the party. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has congratulated Senator Ademola Adeleke, a candidate of the People's Democratic Party (PDP), on his victory in Saturday's governorship election in Osun State. A statement by the special advisor to the president on media and publicity, Femi Adesina, indicates that with the election over, President Buhari expresses the conviction that the people of Osun State have expressed their will through the ballot, and that the will of the people must always matter and be respected in a democracy. The Nigerian Labour Congress has urged the federal government to negotiate in good faith to resolve the ongoing public university strike and not keep the unions in the dark concerning the Professor Nimi Briggs recommendation. A statement by the NLC President Ayuba Waba said the concern by the Congress became necessary in view of recent reports in the media that the federal government may have rejected its own Nimi Briggs Committee on negotiation of the 2009 agreement on the premise of an alleged disparity between the pay rise allocated to university teaching staff and the non-teaching staff. Waba wants the federal government to conclude the ongoing negotiation with trade unions in Nigeria's universities and be prepared to commence implementation of whatever collective bargaining agreement arising thereof so that public universities can resume normal activities. Talking security now, Katsina Police Command has arrested an escapee from Kuje Correctional Center and 4 suspected kidnappers. Parading the suspects at the command's headquarters, Police Public Relations Officer Superintendent Gambo Issa reaffirmed commitment towards securing lives and property.
Some quantity of dried leaf suspected to be in the name was also recovered in his possession during police search. Suspect will be handed over to Nigeria Correctional Service for further necessary action.
Still on security, Zamfara State government has dissociated itself from the recent turbaning of a notorious bandit kingpin, Ado Alero, as Sarkin Fulani by the Emir of Birnin Yandoto in Tsafe local government area of the state. In this regard, the state governor, Bello Muhammad, has directed for the suspension of the emir with immediate effect. According to a statement issued by Secretary to the Zamfara State Government, Kabiru Balarabe, the governor has consequently approved the constitution of a committee to investigate the circumstances that led to the action of the suspended monarch. In the meantime, Alhaji Mahe Garba Marafa, who is the district head of Yandoto, is hereby assigned to take over the affairs of the emirate till further notice. Religious understanding is fast gaining ground among Christians and Muslims in Kaduna State as Evangelical Church of West Africa, ECWA, hosts Muslims during their Sunday devotion. Adherents of 2 religions in Kaduna are lowering their differences to foster unity, understanding, and tolerance.
Bridging the gap between us. We see this as opportunity to emphasize the oneness, the commonality that we have.
People are using religion to make us fight for their selfish aims. So my advice is not only the Christians, but both Muslim and Christians should encourage this kind of services.
That's the news for now. Good morning. Nigeria continues with Kirian and Kingsley after this timeout. Please don't go away.
All right, you are watching Good Morning Nigeria on NTA Network Service. We thank you for staying with us up till this moment. Next is Business News with Comfort Amodu.
Over the weekend, bearish sentiments persisted at the Nigerian exchange, with the Naira depreciating by plus 0.60% to 430.33 Naira, are the investors and exporter FX fixings, affecting the market capitalization further by 28 billion Naira. In the Treasury bills market, the best dominated the market despite the increased yields from the primary auction on Wednesday. In the coming week, the bulls are expected to dominate the market on the back of improved liquidity as investors seek less risky investments. In other news, major crude oil producers are likely to boost supplies following President Joe Biden's visit to the Middle East, as Biden says he expects more steps in supply in coming weeks, while OPEC Plus moves to crank up production increases. Saudi ministers insisted that all policy decisions would be taken according to market logic and within the OPEC Plus coalition, insisting more investment is required in fossil fuel and clean energy technologies to meet global demand. Meanwhile, trade promoters are lauding government's effort to expand Nigeria's export to West African countries towards boosting the country's foreign earnings.
We believe that more foreign exchange will come in from export if we can find a way of having access to the export proceeds that will be repatriated back into the country.
Let us start to think of setting up processing facilities that can add value to the raw materials that we have, doing a PPP with private companies to set up processing facilities that smallholders can actually bring in and aggregate their products and process in those warehouses, and then put these products together and have one off-taker who off-takes these products and export.
They also suggested the removal of bureaucratic constraints to doing business and export of Nigerian products to global markets. With Business News, Comfort Amadu.
Thank you very much, Comfort, for the business package. Coming up next for us is Newspaper Review.
All right, let's welcome Bayo Tebi to the program.
Good morning, Kevin.
Bayo, you're welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, let's begin with The Nation. The Nation newspaper. Above the name flag of The Nation newspaper, we have ex-CJN, 14 Supreme Court justices for probe over corruption. That's on page 5. Muslim ticket shouldn't be an issue, says Pastor Bakare. It's on page 4. Train attack. Ex-military administrator begs governor to rescue family. It's on page 29. Dangote, Ovia, and Mefele, others for Zenith Bank seminars on page 5. Customs confirms plans to auction 7,000 uncleared vehicles. That's on page 4. Now the lead story, of course, is on politics. Adeleke, PDP celebrate as Oyetola studies results. Right after that, governor calls for calm. Buhari outcome Osun people's will. Abu Salami panel decries vote buying. All right, and below that we have this Labour plans 2-day protest over ASU strike. Details on page 5 of The Nation newspaper. Kinsley.
All right, Kieran, thanks a lot. Let's also take a look at the window page of the Sun newspaper. The earpiece of the Sun, of course, it's just what you read now with regard to the NLC. Says ASU strike, that's the kicker. NLC plans nationwide solidarity protest. It has a rider, says government not negotiating in good faith to resolve crisis. And 2023, my successor will come from Ebonyi North. That's according to Governor Mahi. The lead story, obviously, is on the outcome of the Osun governorship election. Osun, PDP, and Atiku brag over Adeleke's victory. And you have a number of riders. Outcome of governorship poll, indication of what awaits APC, says opposition party will win presidential election, boasts ruling party. Buhari, Otom, and others congratulate governor-elect. And the petrol stations dump 165 naira per litre pump price. Nigerian banks and forest requests on foreign currency transactions. NDLEA arrests drug queen with narcotics in fetish bowls at Lagos Airport. You can't win war against terrorists by rhetoric, Fanifere tells Buhari. IPOB wants Bukachua arrested over hate speech against Igbo. Accuses lawmaker of trying to incite genocide in Southeast. And you can see the photographs there on the front page. Jubilant crowds in Osun yesterday, and the governor-elect of Osun State. This looks like the sign for, is it the sign of victory, or it's a Mole Lokon? That's what I would say now.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's what they've been flashing. That's the victorious camp. Now, APC plans legal action against defecting lawmakers, may undertake major purge and suspension of area members. And the sad one right there at the foot of the front page, ex-Lagos APC women leader, Kami Nelson, dies. You have details of that story on page 28. And of course, we also have the Vanguard, but basically the same stories that you have on the front pages of the papers. Why heart surgery in Nigeria, that's according to Vice President Oshibajo. Strike, students desperate to switch to private varsities, according to investigation. And Gazama kicks as Mechao wins NBA presidential election. Ayo.
Thank you, Kingsley. Let's start with the talk of the nation now. The Independent National Electoral Commission has declared Ademola Adeleke of the People's Democratic Party the winner of Saturday's governorship election in Osun. He won in 17 of the 30 local government area, polling 403,371 votes. He beat the incumbent governor, Adegboyega Oyetola, who won in 13 local government by polling 375,027 votes.
Yes, Bayo, yes, we have known the results really.
Yeah.
Well, what should be interesting to us, or to me, if you like, is what played out, in terms of the voting pattern for Houston that led to Adeleke's victory.
Well, if you go back to the election in 2018, you will notice that at the first ballot, when it was inconclusive, Adeleke had actually won by a margin of about 253 votes. But because there were inconclusive election in 7 local government areas, it led to a rerun. And eventually, Adegboyega was pronounced the winner following the rerun. However, if you recall, when they went to court, even the tribunal actually declared Adeleke the winner. But subsequently, when the case got to the Supreme Court, Adegboyega held the day. So the margin between them was quite not too wide. And consequently, from the internal wranglings within the All Progressive Congress, and also even the People's Democratic Party, with people going to other parties, you can see now that this is what accounted for the incumbent not only losing, but also other parties within Osun State who had no forces to be reckoned with have now come up strongly.
All right, we'll be discussing that in details in the program.
Yeah, the details in our conversation segment. But I think that the point to make about the Osun election is to try and remind ourselves, because there are knowledgeable insiders who have a clear indication of what happened in 2018. As you said, the margin of lead was about 353, or thereabout, under 400 votes. Adeleke was ahead. And then they said the election was inconclusive. At the time, INEC was laboring under the weight of inconclusive elections in different parts of the country. And then a supplementary election was then conducted in a very limited constituency. What played out in that constituency, that's the stuff of history. And as journalists, our business, of course, is to ensure that we are not just chroniclers of history, but in some cases, we also provide a second drafts of history. So analysts, of course, will continue to talk about what happened, the security agencies, what happened in 2018. So what has happened on this particular occasion? Yes, the clash between Aregbesola and Tinubu has also been highlighted, but there is also, the point has been made about the fact that the voters were dissatisfied with the performance of the incumbent. But the Bible verse that Ademola is reported to have quoted yesterday about power belonging to God and God investing whomever he so wishes with power is reminiscent of what happened in Edo State in the 2007 governorship election. If you recall, I'm sure, let me just throw this in. Adams Oshomole became governor of Edo State in 2008, of course, following the tribunal judgment and the reaffirmation by the Court of Appeal, because there was a movement in Edo State at the time, led by Pastor Sagi Ezeyamo. It was called the Grace Group, and their slogan was, "No man is God." And they were fighting, of course, with Chief Tony Aneni. The whole battle was for the control of the soul of the PDP then in Edo State. Then the ACN just came on stream, and then they brought in Adams Oshomole to contest on behalf of. So they said, "No man is God." Kyria.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Let's look at other issues.
Yes, the other issues are Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo is recuperating now after undergoing a surgery for a fracture in his thigh bone. And credit must go to him because he says that he preferred and wanted the treatment in spite of a strong advice that he should go abroad. He said there are Nigerian doctors and facilities that are capable of doing it. And so he had his surgery in a hospital in Nigeria, specifically in Lagos, and he is reported to be doing fine. And he emphasized that Nigeria has the facilities and the doctors that can do that. But there has been some anger from Zamfara State, where the emir of Sabon Birni Yandoto has turbaned a repentant bandit, and his intention is that this man has been an accessory to reaching and fighting banditry, and therefore he wanted to reward him. But the people there are protesting that this is somebody who was a bandit before and he has repented. And the state government has now suspended the emir for crowning the man Alero as Serkin Fulani in that area. His intention, according to what he announced, was that he will be an access to the bandits to try and stop their forays in the area. Yeah. Meanwhile, before time runs out on me, Super Falcons are to take on another Lionesses. This time the Lionesses of Atlas of Morocco. It's significant that the two teams have already qualified for a placement in World Cup, Women's World Cup in Australia and New Zealand. However, they need to qualify for the final of the WAFCON. And the Super Falcons, nighttime champions, are determined to add one to it to make it a 10-time African champion.
Yes, we're always happy when they win, the tournament on the African continent, or when they lead. In fact, they are the queens of African football. But then, whenever they go to the international level, it does appear that they perform abysmally.
Maybe he should also point out to you that Benel Insurance is coming to the Premier League.
Hang on.
Let's talk about teams that are in the forefront. It's not teams that are waking up, sleeping and waking up.
I'm more interested in other issues rather than in sports this morning. What happened in Zamfara? We had a news item earlier that the Zamfara state government has directed the suspension of the emir. There are certain matters that policies, actions, or inactions that are offensive to public policy. Assuming the emirate decided that, they wanted to invest the repentant bandit with that traditional title so as to enable him continue to be an access for negotiations, do you need to invest him with a title to do that?
I was taken in that direction. I don't think he needed to be invested with any kind of title in the community. The body, if he's an instrument or a tool that they'll be deploying to reach out to the bandits, that does not necessitate any kind of upliftment. It's like he has uplifted the guy.
Well, you see, it's a two-edged sword. If you look at the level of banditry there, it has got to the extent that some state governors, out of their own, went into the bush to try and negotiate with the bandits, as out of the frustration when they could not overcome the bandits. Don't also forget that some emirs were suspended in Zamfara for being accessory to the banditry itself. So both sides of the coin. This emir says that this man had control over some aspect of it, and because of that, the farmers within that his locality are now able to go to the farm because he has been able to secure peace with the bandits and they are no longer attacking them. But that does not warrant him
to give him his title.
Yes.
Honestly, I mean, that's why, as I said, it's simply offensive, you know, to public policy. The other issue has to do with the story of Vice President Yemi Osinbajo. Wish him speedy recovery. Orthopedic surgeons, you know, performed the surgery on his thigh bone at the weekend. There are a number of competent orthopedic surgeons around the country, but I think that there are a number of pertinent issues that will continue to engage, you know, public conversation on issues, on matters of this nature. Namely, the hospital we were told was opened last year. You have top-grade hospitals also here in Abuja and elsewhere in the country. But guess what? What does it take to, one, establish such hospitals, and two, to ensure that those hospitals continue to thrive and provide quality service? We've had members of the Guild of Medical Directors here on Good Morning Nigeria tell us the frustrations they go through when they import their equipment, because the equipment are not manufactured in Nigeria. And then a number of them are also under all kinds of oppressive taxes and levies by local governments, state governments, and so on and so forth. They cannot function. Now, you can imagine that to perform that surgery, and indeed for any other surgical operation, you have to be on your generator. What is the cost of diesel per liter now for your generator?
820.
820 going to 850. So how do you make the environment conducive for these for these hospital businesses? And there are quality hospitals in Lagos.
The issue here is that it's a system problem, it's a system challenge, because it affects the medical field, just affects other areas of human endeavor, right? They're not alone in it, you know. But from what you have said, it's quite clear that Nigerians need hospitals that of high standard with facilities.
There are hospitals. The other day, when we were talking about the unfortunate case of Senator Madu, Kingsley pointed out here that here in Abuja, there are hospitals that are good in kidney transplant. Currently, as we are talking, Yobe State government has established a state-of-the-art hospital. River State Hospital has the same thing. Bayelsa has the same thing. Kogi has just accepted another one.
At Okene?
Yes. So what is it? So all we require is that, and why are our doctors going abroad? If they are not valued for the standard of their professionalism, they won't be employed abroad. So if we make the environment conducive for them here and bring the facilities, here is as good as home for any tourist.
The issue of medical trips abroad, you know, I think it was heightened because most of those that engage in that do not use their own personal resources to fund it. That's another thing, you know, because if you're a serving officer and you are ill, of course the government is you are entitled to treatment, and some of them would like to do that abroad, and that is why it is happening. If anybody has the resources and decides to go abroad for a medical treatment, fine and good, but not when you are serving and when you know quite well that the resources that will be used to pay for your bill is coming from the state coffers. That is why I remember when Dino was at the House of Reps, I cannot forget the day he was on the floor, and he made it clear that look, that we don't have specialized hospitals in Nigeria, and he was shouted down by his colleagues at the Green Chambers. And I said, look, if we are really a nation that wants to build itself, I mean, you should have specialized hospitals for heart, for brain, and other parts of the body.
Kirian, there was an intention to establish specialized hospitals. During the administration of President Olusegun Obasanjo, hospitals were identified as specialized hospitals to become specialists in specific functions of the body. Some for heart, some for kidney, and others. But what became of that program?
Well, as I said, it's the Vice President's condition of wishing speedy recovery. Yes. That's raised all of this. It is not just sufficient to have had the news, but to say, look, what are the implications? Thanks a lot. We'll see you again tomorrow.
There will be another.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll be looking at the outcome of the Osun governorship election and issues relevant to conduct of future polls.
All right, we thank you for staying with us. Our topic for today is the just concluded governorship election in Osun State, a review of that. And before we engage in the conversation, let's get this background report by our correspondent, Oyemi Ajayi.
The just concluded Osun State governorship election was another litmus test for the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) and the Electoral Act 2022. The election, which held across 3,763 units in 30 local government areas of the state, was keenly contested, and at the end, Ademola Adeleke of the People's Democratic Party was announced winner, scoring a total of 403,371 votes to defeat the incumbent Adebola Oyetola of the All Progressives Congress, who had 375,027 votes.
Clear that Adeleke, Ademola, Jackson, Nuruddin, on behalf of the chairman of INEC of PDP, having satisfied the requirements of the law, is hereby declared the winner, and he is returned elected.
The electoral umpire reported that PDP won 17 out of the 13 local government areas of the state, while the APC won the remaining 13. Nonetheless, there were reports of massive vote buying, which drew the condemnation of some candidates and civil society organizations. The Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room said codes and coupons were used to extract commitments from voters in the Osun State governorship election, and this is said to be another means of vote trading. Some INEC officers were said to have complained about lack of data to upload results to INEC website for effective collation. In all, INEC officers were commended not just for their good conduct, but also their early arrival and that of materials after being conveyed by bosses to their various duty points. There was a heavy turnout of voters, with more than 1.5 million voters, inclusive of aged, who were given privilege to vote first. How successful or otherwise was the Osun State governorship election? Guests on the program will give their assessments shortly.
All right, thank you very much, Oyemi Ajayi, for that background. With us in the studios now to discuss matters arising from that election, let's welcome Mr. Victor Aluko, who is Director of Voter Education and Publicity at the Independent National Electoral Commission. Mr. Aluko, delight to have you in Nigeria. Good morning. All right, also here with us in the studios is Professor Victor Adetula, a Senior Fellow at the Center for Democracy and Development. He's also a Professor of Political Science at the University of Jos. Professor Adetula, I'm glad to have you this morning.
Thank you and good morning.
That's right. And with us this morning via Zoom from Osogbo is NLB. NLB is Country Director, Action Aid and Convener, Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, we may have to start with you because you're on ground in Osogbo there and monitored the elections. Now, let's have your assessment of the Osun governorship election.
Thank you very much for the question. I want to say generally from the Civil Society Situation Room and from all the, the observers that we deployed, I want to say that generally the election was very, very peaceful. Prior to the election, there were some fears that were expressed, so we were wondering if we're going to have a low voter turnout again. But, it was very, very peaceful. So I want to start from that perspective that the citizens, say congratulations to the people of Osun State for the way they conducted themselves. you know, despite some of the little challenges that we met. In terms of logistics and the early arrival at the polls, we want to sincerely commend INEC because as early as 6 something, you know, before 7 a.m., a lot of the materials had gone to the respective polling units. We had tracked, we monitored the day that the distribution was being done that was on Friday, when the things were being done, you know, at the INEC office, the deployment of materials to the local government, and then the following day, you know, much later in the day, you know, there were more further deployments, you know, to, you know, the racks. And it was followed by the way they had prepared. Before the election, we had a meeting with the REC to give us a briefing about the readiness of INEC to conduct this election. That's at the REC level in Osun, you know, and we were debriefed. They said they were going to beat the record of Ekiti State, and so they went on ahead. By 7:30 a.m., about 95% of deployment had gotten to the polling unit. So it's a lot of commendation to INEC and the, you know, both at the state level and the national, because so a heavy deployment from the national level as well. The other is this issue of security. We had a meeting with the DIG, you know, though the IGP was on ground, you know, on Tuesday when the stakeholder meeting was conducted, and he said very seriously the police is taking the elections quite serious. They have created units for investigating issues of vote buying, some of the concerns that we had. And so I want to also commend the security for the tightness. When we met with the DIG, almost all the service chiefs were there. You know, and so it was a meeting with the civil society, the media, and to say, let's be able to stand up right for Nigeria. And we raised some of the concerns. Major was the issue of vote buying. It happened in Ekiti. What's going to happen in Osun State? Are you going to be able to make arrests? Because we heard of arrests in Ekiti. Nobody has been prosecuted. If we have the same issue here, what are you going to do about it? With the promise of the IG, we then met in that meeting with the DIG. He made a promise also that they will do the best. We had issues of security flashpoints, which was noted by INEC and then again reiterated by the security. And they had promised that they were going to do the needful. Another area we were concerned about was the beavers, the performance of the beavers. And I can say that the beavers performed a lot better than what we even had, you know, in Ekiti. In the past elections, we had issues at the Anambra election, you know, because of the dropping of many, you know, ad hoc staff that were trained and had to you know, down their tools in the morning of the election. And so there was a lot of confusion, but there shouldn't have been any excuses in the FCT election where the beavers was a shamble. But in Ekiti, the performance was about 75%. And here I can say that the performance was more than 90%. You know, just in few places where we had some of the polling units that I personally visited, the beavers was less than a minute to accredit so many people. However, there are some few places which we are trying to tally and make sure that we let INEC know so that they can follow the machines to see what really happened, where the machines took up to 3 minutes or up to 5 minutes, you know, but there were few places. So generally, we want to commend them. But in the vote buying, that was a major one. You know, we noticed the silence. You know, they seem to have looked at what happened in Ekiti and now coming down and say, okay, you know, what do we do to be able to cheat? So you don't see people visibly. You see even people, you know, voting and then crossing to a perimeter that is beyond the 300 meters where, of course, nobody can look at them. But another way that we also look at is the positioning of the voting cubicle. If it were positioned better, you know, the secrecy of the ballot will be more protected. I think the politicians also know now that if you don't convince people to vote for you, you cannot get votes anymore. And so, but we saw a lot of the voting cubicles positioned in a way that somebody can either look at your shoulder or you can raise your card, to show people, which is an area that they should be able to, tighten up. So INEC can do a lot. The security, agencies can do a whole lot of that. I think there is room for improvement, lessons learned. The neck to neck of some of the competition will tell you that despite the fact that in one local government, half of the people voted for one of the major political parties and the other voted, they conducted themselves really nicely. That's a brief. The turnout was good.
All right, NLB, thank you very much there for the lowdown that you have given us. But the Zoom connection to Oshobo is pretty good at the moment, so I'll take advantage of that to pop the next question. If you recall, in the lead up to the passage of the Electoral Act 2022, there was a great deal of debate and drama, if you may, around electronic transmission of results and how that might then be a game changer in seeking to frustrate potential riggers of results of election. Did this help this time?
I think, I'm not sure I think I got maybe more than 90% of what you said. I think I want to say that we're just lucky to have gotten the Electoral Act. I'm happy that despite some of the clauses that came in, the president was able to sign, the electoral bill. I think that's a gift to Nigerians. By 10 p.m., almost up to 96% of the votes cast had been loaded into the INEC, portal, and this is accessible to Nigerians. And so I think the electronic transmission is something they still have to deal with, because from the electronic side, you were able to determine who the winner really is already. But can we transmit that? There is still an element there which we still have to try to look at to see if immediate transmissions you can download, and also that can become, the norm. But I want to say that the transparency of INEC during this period is exceptional. We had the data, of those who were collected their PVCs just before the voting. It was a mop-up until about Thursday before the close of the collection of the PVCs. And the way it started, we met with them before. When we met with the reg more than about 2 weeks ago, they had stopped giving PVCs at the local government, at the ward level. But we asked them, we pleaded with them to reopen that, because the distance between the local government and the wards are quite, quite a long one, and the landmass of Osun, letting people go to local government will not have worked well. And they actually heeded to our plea, and they reopened. And so many people collected, about more than 1.5 million collected their PVCs. And so that's a lot of kudos. And so the turnout that we're seeing, which is more than 50%, is something that we are quite excited with. I think the voting, the Electoral Act is being monitored, and the security agencies did tell us that they are going to be able to guide. But we can do more if everybody is standing upright for Nigeria, both the security, the INEC, staff, the ad hoc staff. I think a lot of training also went in to the, in preparation for Osun, and I think it paid off.
Okay, thank you once again, Nobi. Let's get back here to the studio, where we have Victor, our local director, voter education and publicity, INEC. Well, a number of Nigerians have showered encomiums, on INEC for a successful outing in Osun State. And of course, from what Nobi has just told us, it does appear that INEC performed creditably with respect to Osun election. But I'd like you to come from the angle of challenges that you experience, that could be addressed as we look forward to 2023 general election. What are those, fault lines, with respect to Osun election that you'd like to correct, next time around?
Thank you so much. But before I talk about the challenges, I would like to convey the gratitude of the Commission to all stakeholders who work with INEC to deliver successful election in Osun State. And not only in Osun State, also in Ekiti State, because within 4 weeks, that's a month, we conducted 2 governorship elections. And 2 of them were highly successful. We are happy with that, and we need to actually accept the accolades from Nigerians, but also let people know that the commendation goes around all the stakeholders, NYC, who of course supplied us with the bulk of presiding officers. All those young men and women performed very well. The security agencies, the voters themselves who turned out. We had 55% turnout. That's extremely good. For some time now, we have not had such turnout. And so when we look at it, even though as a commission we have not done a review of the Osun election because yesterday was Sunday and today is the first day we'll be at work. But we are happy, and we are not trying to take the whole accolades alone. We want to also let our stakeholders know that we are grateful, and to also say that such collaboration should continue as we move towards the 2023 elections. Talking about the challenges, we'll do a full review, as I said, but we also know that we did not have 100% opening. That's as at 8:30. I can say we had more than 95%. More than 95%. You call that one an A+, if we are sitting for an examination. But there's no perfection in anything in life, anything that human beings will have to handle. You have some few levels of challenges. We will look into the whole situation and know the little places where we faltered a little, so that we can approach the general elections with a higher level of confidence and readiness. And I like to mention something specifically, that this time around, the people of Osun State, that is the voters in Osun State, really tried. We were there 2 weeks before the election. The chairman was there to assess the readiness of our office there. We were also there a few days before the election for the stakeholders meetings, and we moved around to many local governments, and we saw the enthusiasm, people willing to, collect cards, people talking about their readiness to vote. And I think we should note that Nigeria's democracy is actually progressing as it should be. And I would like to tell the powers that be that you need to continue to allow this democracy to grow, because it will be to the benefit of all Nigerians if we're able to get to that level that we want to get to. All right, thank you, Victor Aluko, for your initial comments. Let's bring in now Professor Victor Ademola. The Ekiti election went on, and about a month or so later now, we've had the Osun governorship election, both done and dusted. But in the specific case of Osun, what was the election, its conduct, and the outcome? What did they represent?
Thank you very much. It's a progressive improvement in the electoral process, especially if we focus on the institution, INEC, as the key election management body. Prior to this time, we all know where we're coming from, where in terms of public confidence in that institution is quite low. But in the past few months, I think the improvement has been dramatic. And I want to add that a lot of planning indeed went into this preparation, both at the level of collaboration among the critical stakeholders, intensifying the training and preparation, and of course, the deployment of technology. Now, there's no controversy today about the use of technology in administering election in Nigeria. I think this is good to note. And there's a way in which it signals what is likely to happen in with future elections. I mean, with public confidence high, with the enthusiasm and the turnout, I think we can look forward to a successful 2023.
Yes, because by 2023, INEC is going to grasp with 36 states of the Federation. It's not going to be an off-the-cycle election as we've had in Ekiti and Osun State, so it's going to be a more serious test case for INEC and, of course, the implementation of the new Electoral Act. I'll still go back to INEC. I have concerns about the performance of INEC, which has been, rated very high, as you rightly pointed out. In fact, many Nigerians are shoring encomiums on INEC and what have you. But I still believe that INEC also has some areas to touch on. You have men in the field during the elections, and they may have observed. Of course, you said you have not really met, to evaluate the election. Yes, but there could also be some complaints from some stakeholders during the election. Was there any complaints on the part of the political parties or perhaps some of your workers, especially the ad hoc workers, on events that took place within during the election that they should be, taken care of in the next election?
I can say for now, we have not harvested all those complaints from the field. I told you that we will do a review. But definitely, if you're deploying thousands of officials, ad hoc officials, thousands of polling officials, we had a presiding officer and 3 assistant presiding officers in each polling unit. We had 3,763 units, across 332 wards, and we had to deal with 1.5 million persons who collected PVCs, and so that interaction between INEC and its officials, training the ad hoc staff, deploying them, the logistic arrangements. Of course, on election day itself, you cannot say there won't be one thing that you will have to look at and see whether you will be able to improve. But when we do a review, we'll be able to tell ourselves actually what happened. We will not just lay back, soak in the commendations from Nigerians and not actually look at our processes. We have taken those processes to a high level now. The deployment and also the reverse logistics were top notch. We know that, but we must do a review first.
Yes, there was something that would be raised, when she was responding to my colleague's question. That has to do with the positioning of the cubicle for the voting, because as you said, that the secrecy of the ballot has to be protected.
Yes.
Who was responsible for positioning of cubicles? Because if he's badly positioned, one could easily, while voting, try to show where he voted and of course collect money afterwards.
I heard her when she was talking about the issue of positioning of cubicles. Actually, we reviewed all this before, even before we went to Anambra. There's a relationship between the position of cubicles and this issue of display of who you voted for. If you look at Section 46 of the Electoral Act, it specifically talks about voters casting their ballot in the open, in which case the ballot box must be placed in the open, whereas the cubicle is where you thumbprint in secret. The cubicle is where you thumbprint in secret. In many instances where we even conduct elections in school premises, you keep the cubicle inside the classroom so that nobody will see where the person is thumbprinting. But by law, you must put the ballot box in the open. So what we try to do is to strike a balance so that the distance between where you keep the ballot box and where the cubicle will be so short so that when somebody is coming, they won't have time to actually display the ballot paper. You know, you are supposed to even fold. You find a situation where some people may not even fold. And so, in this type of situation, how many people are you going to arrest for slightly displaying? Where are the correctional centers you put all of them, even if you prosecute them? So that's an issue we continue to look at, striking a balance between what the law provides and the actual situation on ground to prevent people from displaying, you know, the ballot paper. Somebody hiding somewhere, looking at the moment the person will display, so that the person will go back and maybe get induced or something like that. I think that's what NTA was talking about, and we'll continue to look at it, continue to interview our officials and see how we can overcome that aspect of our arrangement at the polling unit.
Well, I think that the rationale for the provision in the Electoral Act having the ballot box in the open is to ensure that no one voter casts more than one ballot.
Yeah.
You know, so you go into the cubicle, you thumbprint, and then you come out, and the whole world will see that it is just one ballot paper, one vote that you are casting. But now there is a mischief that has arisen, which is what we're talking about. That namely, they will go into the cubicle and to abridge the distance between the cubicle and the ballot box. After thumbprinting, some of them you say will not fold. Again, folding depending on the length of the ballot paper. Now there are just about 15 candidates or 15 parties. In the past, you know, it's something that had to be almost like a 6-yard wrapper. And if you didn't fold it properly, then the vote could be void. Yes. So they just hold it. Kirian, I don't know if you and I were there. Maybe I would have shown you like this. But it's a serious issue ultimately, because as INEC and lawmakers have come up with better ways of ensuring the integrity of the electoral process, manipulators of the system are also getting more ingenious in seeking to bypass the rules, in seeking to bypass technology and so on and so forth. Which is why my question is going to NLB, whom of course was in charge of the civil society situation room. In Ekiti, I mean, it was said to have been blatant in terms of vote buying. And now in Osun, the issue, if you look at both Osun actually and Ekiti, the incidence of violence was much attenuated. But the incidence of vote buying seemed to have gone up. Now this remains a sore point, if not an insult, to our collective intelligence and therefore the integrity and credibility of the elections. In your opinion, is it just plain poverty of the voters, or is it seen as a game, or is it that the politicians themselves are just too desperate, and so instead of seeking to convince voters who to vote for, they believe that they have to spend money, and we should be certain anyway that the money they are spending isn't coming from their pocket?
I think, you know, the positioning, just like the analysis that you have given, the positioning of the ballot, of the voting cubicle can reduce the secrecy of the ballot. It's okay for you to place it differently. In a number of the polling units that we visited and that the observers reported, you can see that the ballot, the cubicle is placed in a way that does not allow secrecy at all. People are looking over their shoulders. Even the way it's placed close to the INEC ad hoc staff, you will find out that they can't even see what they're doing, what these people are doing. One particular polling unit, you know, there were a lot of people were on ground. You know, the voting cubicle allowed 2 people to vote at the same time. One side of the voting cubicle can give you a complete secrecy. The other side doesn't. And majority were using the other side that is so exposed. And I think the secrecy of it is for the INEC officials to direct them. If you know that one side is exposed and the other is not, tell them where to use it. I think what is happening generally here is that the politicians know that the power has gone back to the people. There is the era of ballot snatching is gone. The era of snatching materials is something that you cannot make, snatching PVCs and then doing some printing is gone. So the power has gone to the people. But that also entails that we have to take responsibility. Citizens need to realize the power that they have, and they used it this time because if the secrecy of the cubicle web was protected, you find out that people may take the money, but they will still vote for the people of their choice. So it's a lot more than they are mastering the way of vote buying. Some of it is obviously, some arrests were made. We're happy that some arrests were made. That was confirmed by the DIG, and we hope that these people will be prosecuted. I think we cannot leave this to INEC alone. INEC can do certain things. Yes, they can tighten a lot of the other ways to prevent vote buying or to protect the secrecy of the voting population or the voters. But we have to be able to take responsibility as citizens as well. One area you say because of poverty, I work with an anti-poverty, agency, and we do a lot in terms of conscientizing people to see that the things they bring for you is for them to also take more from you and further impoverish you. And I think voting with our conscience is something that we have to deal with. We're looking at INEC, but the National Orientation Agency is a big organization. It is the one that is supposed to be in charge of civic education. How are we taking this down? NOA, I don't know how much education they have done in this case. They have 774 representation in terms of political scientists on ground. Have they been given the wherewithal to conduct civic education? So we should not limit the achieving of a beautiful election to INEC alone. And I'm happy that at least the security agencies have done certain things, but I think at the end of the day, we are going to have a lot of lessons that will feed back to INEC and then feed back to the security agencies. Like I told the DIG during the briefing with him, I said we should not be meeting alone when we are before the election. We should meet after the election, which should be able to give us opportunity to look at lessons learned. Thank you.
All right, NLB, thank you very much. I mean, you raised an important issue, Kieran, and that's she's talking about the role of civic education in further empowerment of the voter. And she also talked about the role of the National Orientation Agency. Unfortunately, Noah is an orphan. Dr. Garba Abari, who is the DG of NOAA, has been a guest on Good Morning Nigeria on a number of occasions. It's also appeared at several fora. The unfortunate thing is that NOAA is grossly underfunded. I mean, for it to embark on the advocacy and civic education and training programs that we all envisage, it cannot do it on the basis of the peanuts that it gets at the moment. And why there has been no radical change of the funding dynamics for NOAA is something that continues to remain strange to us.
Yes, and the DG of NOAA, as you pointed out, at different fora, has actually cried out, to say, look, we can't carry out our responsibility without enough funding. If the funding is inadequate, of course, the advocacy will certainly be inadequate. All right, let's leave that there and bring back Professor Victor Ademola, a senior fellow, Center for Democracy. Well, Nigeria has had a checkered election history since 1957, or even beyond that, and we'll be trying to see how we can understand and appreciate what elections are all about and how we should conduct ourselves during elections. Of course, in the process of implementing electoral act, we've had electoral acts and what have you, but we also had very tough elections. But we're beginning to arrive at a point where we can say, look, yes, Nigerians now are beginning to understand the concept of electioneering, and of course the casting of votes. Now, how would you assess our maturity in terms of Nigerians' status in understanding democracy and how the process should be implemented without having all these glitches and hitches and what have you? Are we making a headway?
I like the way you underscore the point, our conduct. How do we conduct ourselves during election? And I think it came to the issue of our value and our attitude. I like the contribution about the location of the ballot box, the role of relevant agencies, but our attitude as citizens also matter. And of course, we talk about the ingenuity of Nigerians to beat the regulation. And I think there has to be a giver and a taker. The citizen, like NLB, has responsibility. I'm aware that INEC has introduced hotline where to report incidents of vote buying. I don't have the statistics. How many people have used that to report what they see, even when they don't collect? I think we should use some of this measuring framework to judge who we are and where we are and our understanding of the process before we celebrate the result and the outcome. To key again into the question of our maturity, of course, we are growing as a nation, given our history, several years under military rule, and the distortion of relevant political institutions, civil society, political parties. Regrettably, our political parties have not performed impressively. Again, in all these matters. Of course, we're talking about political education for the people via NOAA's agency. How involved are the political parties in shaping what is the content of the message? Of course, we all witnessed the colorful campaign, but where are the issues? What are the issues in the campaign? All this reflects the way we still conduct as both on the part of the political class and even the citizen. What message do you want to hear beyond the dancing and the colorful representation at all levels? Of course, we are emerging into it. One point is that Nigerians want democracy, but they want democracy that will give them good governance, which translates to delivery of public goods. If we continue with elections till they do up and there is no performance in terms of improved livelihood for the people, democracy has nothing. There was a research by Afrobarometer that suggests that people of older generation look nostalgically at the era where, oh, the rail system working, the water system working, whatever the system of government. So I think the focus is election that can improve the livelihood of the people.
All right, electoral outcomes that will improve the livelihood of Nigerians. Victor Aluko, let's bring you back again into this conversation. I know that it was a manner of speaking when you posed a rhetorical question that, look, if people are engaging in vote trading, how many of them can you possibly arrest? How many correctional centers can accommodate them? In law, you don't need to arrest a million persons and prosecute a million persons. A few of them that you pick up and then you use them as scapegoats so that the lesson sinks. Now the issue has arisen as to the menace of vote buying. Violence, of course, is generally being taken care of now. Your technology is working, but vote buying. And I raised this question just on the eve of the election last week. And it was said that, again, the buck goes back to INEC. Yes, we know that there are issues around the establishment of an electoral offences commission or tribunal. But what challenge does INEC have with following through in terms of what the security agency will apprehend and then diligent prosecution?
Well, as a commission, there's a need to actually pity us in terms of the reach of our abilities in this matter. We are not an investigative agency. We manage the polling unit actually, But you find out that many of these issues actually are concluded beyond our reach. These things are done way outside the polling units. And so there's a limit to what we can do. I told you that in each polling unit we have a presiding officer. Then you have 3 assistant presiding officers, young people, who in many instances are so busy, are overwhelmed, attending to voters that they may not even see what's happening 20 meters away from them. And they are under pressure, trying to make sure that the beavers is working well, trying to look at the voter register, trying to tear the ballot paper for the voter, and trying to make sure that things are not disrupted. And of course, you see party agents breathing down on their necks. So on election day, the typical situation, in a polling unit, it's a matter of tension for our officials. And you see INEC officials also monitoring, moving up and down. Many people have not even eaten, will not even eat until the night. Many people are fasting, forced fasting. And so you find a situation where, in terms of what we can do about issue of vote by, we're trying our best. We banned all photographic devices, mobile phones from our polling stations, so that you won't take photograph of your ballot paper. But as mentioned, when we close one door, some of our political people will open another one. And so about the issue of about arresting and prosecuting. Of course, the entire public heard that when we were in Ekiti, some persons were arrested with money. We've not heard from the police what's happened. But truly, not only INEC, but even the media, the civil society organizations should follow up to know what happened, because there must be some form of deterrent. Some people must be used as scapegoat, as you said. If people know that some people went to jail because of this, next time they will be a little bit careful. But the problem is, even when we expect people to be careful, they try to make it more discreet. They try to make it more discreet. I was telling you about how some people will thumbprint, and between the cubicle and the ballot box, they are able to display the ballot paper, and somebody's looking somewhere is able to see and knock his head. And nod his head like this. And these are behavioral issues. It's a societal problem. When people talk about the relationship between vote selling and poverty. But there's poverty all over the world, and we need just to imbibe good behavior as a country and see that this is a vice that we must rise up against, and that the moral areas are issues we must look into.
Okay. Sorry. Let's be clear about this, because we do hear about complaints about who has the powers to prosecute. Now, if INEC, of course, you will have to engage private prosecutors if that is necessarily the case. Is INEC hamstrung in terms of following through with the prosecution? All you need is a watertight case against a few elements, and then they go to correctional center.
The issue of prosecution, the police must arrest first. The police must do proper investigation. You can arrest someone if the case is not properly investigated, for us to have the facts. When you get to court, the man will get a good lawyer. The judge will throw out the case.
Exactly.
And it will be a wasted effort. So we are saying, let there be arrests when the arrests are necessary. Let there be proper investigation. There should be evidence that the person actually did what he did. The mere fact that you see somebody giving somebody money outside the perimeter of the unit, it's not. You cannot prove that truly it was meant to induce or influence the person. So you need to establish
just wait. I think the issue is as follows. I recognize the challenge. From what Mr. Adeleke is trying to explain, I recognize that challenge. But take a look at it. When you say, nobody is saying INEC should go and apprehend. What we are saying, the police will tell you that yes, they have done their arrest, and then they will develop the case file, which is called in law proofs of evidence. And then it is now for INEC to say, oh yeah, as the saying goes, prosecute, and of course, fund the prosecution.
Okay, let's leave this aspect there, but INEC knows that there is a challenge there. Well, you see, the more you tighten the regulatory measures, the more ingenious some Nigerians are in terms of trying to beat it. We may take a break now, really, and when we come back, I will pose this question. I had wanted to bring in NLOB once more on another aspect of this conversation, but let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll get that done. Stay with us. All right, we thank you for still staying with us up to this moment on Good Morning Nigeria. And of course, our topic is a review of the just concluded Osun governorship election. In every election, especially in Nigeria and of course some African countries, in elections there's always an intricate network of some activities from BVAS accreditation and other aspects. But one aspect I'd like NLB to come in here is that of electronic transmission of results. So far, people believe it's a game changer. What was the performance or percentage of performance of transmission or uploading the results from the ward levels to the collection center? How did it play out in Osun election?
I think again is another improvement coming from where we are. We saw that happening in Anambra, and that's why we really were agitating for the electoral, bill to be passed at that time. We're talking about it because we know that the secrecy of the ballot and also the transparency of the ballot will be, at least you can be evidenced by the transmission, which the House then or the Parliament was saying it was really doubting, and that's how we had to go back and forth. In Osun, again, it's a lot of improvement in terms of transmission. Immediately the votes were cast, once the voting ended and all, and it's done in a very transparent manner, and the results were pasted. One of the things that you have to, the line between the political parties in some of the polling units, is surprising to see certain things being done, like people being helped to print, which was not in many places, but in a few cases where we witnessed that, there was a lot of silence from the other political parties, as if together they had, in some of them had really put themselves together to say, we want to, either this party wins or that party. The individuality was not seen, while in one of the political, polling unit, I saw a political party, representative really standing and saying, no, you cannot do this again. You cannot do that again. You cannot lead somebody and then go and show the person. So I think the political parties, really need to be able to stand for themselves. It doesn't matter if you are not a major political party, but you need to protect your vote. Those little votes that you are getting also speaks volume for yourself. Like Prof, mentioned, political education is another issue, but taking responsibility as citizens for what we are getting, the orientation, we need to value reorientation. It's very, very important. We are being degraded by the politicians. And I think, Dr. Aluko also mentioned there that, the political class need to stay away from the system, and we need to be able to take them out of the system. But one major one that they are ignoring, political parties are ignoring, is that they ought to also have political education themselves. Like the money that they have received, they are getting from aspirants now, the billions that they have collected, God knows what they are going to use it for. But so political education is not left for the governmental agencies alone. I want to still bring us back to the point which was raised earlier, and that is on the National Orientation Agency. Stanley, brought it up there. We need to be able to look at that. What is the use of National Orientation Agency? As a little girl, I saw the National Orientation Agency, the Federal Ministry of Information then, with their big trucks that they used to take to villages if they want somebody to get it right. The funding of INEC for, election, therefore, should we look at other agencies to also capture it as a very important environment? But back to your electronic transmission, by 10 a.m., by 10 p.m., we had almost all the results loaded on INEC portal. And the INEC was very, very transparent. And I'm happy that Professor Mahmoud committed in the stakeholders meeting which held on Tuesday, that they were very, very serious about issues of vote buying. I think it's becoming like the case of Enekede Bed, to say that, since hunters have learned to shoot without missing, they too have learned, he too have learned to also patch without swinging the arms for enough, the vulnerability. So perfection is what some people are doing, but I think I'm really happy that the voting process, power has gone to the people, and whatever you do now, you have to talk to the people, but the people will have to take a destiny in their hands. But let INEC help them. The new cubicle is a cubicle that is helping, Nigeria. Is very, very, very good for those who are not physically challenged. But if you look at the cubicle now, it gives a secrecy, but the placement is another, and we cannot look the other way. In that way, INEC needs to improve. Thank you.
NLB, thank you very much there for your response. I want to ask Professor Ademola a question, and this is also going to be of interest to you, and I imagine also Victor Aluko, who is INEC Director of Voter Education and Publicity. In terms of the praise that INEC and other stakeholders have received for the conduct of the Osun election, turned out impressive by comparison to what happened in the past. Very few incidents of violence. Voters conducted themselves well. Beavers worked tremendously. Electronic transmission of results and so on and so forth. And you did say, Prof, that in a sense this is a sign of things to come ahead of the 2023 election. Now, let's have some reality check. This is a standalone election. In the general elections next year, we'll be dealing with 36 constituencies plus the Federal Capital Territory, which makes it 37. And then there are parts of the country that are still ravaged by incidents of insecurity, banditry, kidnapping, terrorism. And then there are also, in some instances, in Osun, we didn't see that now, underage voting. And just plain disruption of the voting process. What can we do to carry over the success in Osun into these other scenarios where you have potential landmines in the 2023 elections?
Very great. I'm proud to be a Nigerian. Among other things, Nigerians don't just keep quiet. They're not a set of people that will you easily ask them to keep quiet. If you are doing something that they are impressed, they come out openly to tell you. And if you are doing the other way, they also tell you. I think that is one thing to take care of. And where there have been a lot of praises for INEC and other relevant agencies, but that is not for them to go to sleep. I heard Mr. Luku just said about, and it is the routine thing for them to do very thorough post-event review and take lesson learned, not only for INET. I imagine the security agencies will do, just like so many civil society organizations. The recommendation from all this platform will be useful. And of course, INEC increasingly is meeting with all these critical stakeholders. So that provides opportunity to harness this recommendation in terms of lesson learned and what to do. I think the issue of the security, topography of the country, there are challenges, but just the way it's been addressed in this instance, surely I do expect that that will be done. The security agencies need to help us gain confidence, just like in the case of Ekiti and Osun, but more importantly, Osun, because the voters turnout very impressive, because the people were assured. People need to be assured that they are secure and they can vote, and I think with that we can look forward. And the issue of some of the technology devices in terms of enhancing the deployment of technology, I think there have been remarkable improvement, like it's been suggested. Some of the reviews that have come up, INEC will need to intensify training. And another innovation that has been very useful, the kind of stakeholders interaction that INEC chair and its official has done, and even test running some of this equipment before time, I think has been useful. But there is a challenge, and that is our political class, the politicians. They also need to come out and level up with the kind of seriousness that the institution of INEC, the agencies are putting in. And if they work along this line, we are likely to see a better election come 2023.
Yeah, yes, and of course, if INEC is going to also ramp up in terms of, having enough manpower, to execute that huge election of 2023, which will involve, as my colleague said, the 36 states of the Federation and the FCT. Now, let's talk about the turnout in Osun State election. Some say 45% turnout, and we're giving it a pass mark, not up to 50%. So why should it be a pass mark, as people are saying? We had about 76% of PVC collection, right, in Osun State, and now recording a turnout of about 45%. What's your view about that? And I know all these also have to do with the issue of PVC collection and what have you.
Yes. We actually have 1.9 million registered voters. 1.9 million, just a round figure. While the PVC is collected about 1.5 million, just a little above 1.5 million. So let's use the figure 1.5. And then the total votes cast is around 800,000, something like that. And when you look at it, it's about 55, it's around 55% turnout. Actually, say 54 points. And when you round it up to the final figure, it's 55% turnout. Because we are calculating that percentage based on those who collected PVCs. We are not using those who are registered. Those who collected PVCs, those are the people who are eligible to vote. So when you use the figure of those who collected PVCs, you have around 55%.
Are you supposed to be calculating those who collected PVCs or those who were able to cast their votes on the voting?
No, those who collected PVCs are actually those that are eligible to
cast
vote.
their votes.
So you use that figure as a baseline. Those are the people that are by law eligible to vote. If you registered and you did not collect your PVC, you just a citizen. It's like a car that does not have petrol. It cannot move, so you cannot say the number of cars on the road.
Yes. So, but that's why I'm concerned about this might not be a real issue, but it makes sense. If you calculating your percentage of turnout with people who collected the PVC but who couldn't vote, what sense does it make? I thought that you were doing that based on those who were able to cast their votes.
No, the number of accredited voters, in each unit, those are the people who actually came to vote. But we have to base it on those who collect the eligible persons by law.
Okay.
Because that means some turned out, some did not turn out. So to know the number of people who turned out, you have to know the number of persons who did not turn out. So those who actually collected PVCs, that is the data used to calculate the turnout. That is, those who came to our polling units on election day, 55% of those who collected PVCs came to our polling unit on election day. That's just the statistics.
Okay, well, this used to be an issue in the past. I think, as you said, the law, that's the Act, the INEC guidelines, have streamlined all of that now in terms of, for instance, calculating the margin of lead, no longer based on the number of registered voters. But I would like Ene to also weigh in on the question that I asked Prof earlier about us being wary of extrapolating the success of Osun into 2023 against the backdrop of some of the factors that are itemized. Prof already responded to some of those factors, but it's also the case that some of those factors are external to INEC. I mean, violence, for instance, whether unknown gunmen, whether bandits, kidnappers, or terrorists. I mean, INEC is not a terrorist organization. Underage voting, these are also factors that are external to INEC. What can we do when these factors begin to pop up, as they just might in some parts of the country during the general elections next year?
I think the stakeholder meetings that INEC gets to conduct is very, very important. There are times that they bring it down to sectorial meetings. And I think in this case, coming to Osun, before Osun, there were a series of meetings. And but in Osun, the stakeholders meeting brought together almost everyone. INEC brought together everyone, which was and the INEC chairman addressed the meeting himself. We're happy that there was a political commitment from the IGP because he was personally in Osun, in Osogbo. And then we had the whole Oni of Ife. So the traditional rulers were also represented. All the service chiefs were represented. And what they did is not only from those who were at the state level, but they came from the national as well. So I think that's the commitment of the expertise that is needed, including the army. The army were on ground. And with the meeting we had with the DIG as well, all the service chiefs were on ground. I think if we can close the loopholes, value reorientation of the security agencies, of every human person, because we're all covered as citizens under the Constitution. I think it's very, very important for us to pull down there. But the citizens need to do their own bits. How are we going to get there? Is value reorientation. And the flashpoints, the issues of security, were handled by the security. I know that there was one incident where somebody was trying to disrupt elections because when it was coming down to the voting time, they were and government police officers just took the guy, and I like the way they didn't malhandle him. We just saw him, he was, they told him to kneel down there. To the glare of the people, they took him out of the perimeter and they told him to kneel down, and he was arrested. So it depends on the orientation of the people. We also had a monitoring group by very senior police officers who were hovering. That was a very important one. INEC also had its own responsibility. They had the monitoring unit, and we saw them in action. One area where they had they placed the polling unit was inside the palace, and they moved it out. Sorry. Go ahead, ma'am. Go ahead. Okay, and they were able to move it out. I think every agency that is involved, they need to be able to perform. The security agencies will also need to come back. The men that we see, just like was mentioned by the INEC representative, Dr. Aluko, there is need to be able to release allowances and all that. Though we didn't have so many complaints, but some of the agencies, I'm not going to name one in particular, I said they had not even been paid for Ekiti. The allowances have not been paid. Let's take that very seriously. Transparency and accountability is an issue. Corruption is an issue, even in the system. So
all right, no, we just have to pause it there. But you have just raised a very important issue here that those who worked at the Ekiti elections have not yet received their allowances. INEC will be on notice and do something about that. Is at this point, gentlemen and lady, that we conclude this edition of Good Morning Nigeria. I'd like to appreciate Victor Aluko, Director of Voter Education and Publicity at the Independent National Electoral Commission. Victor, thank you very much for coming. Professor Victor Ademola, we have two Victors here this morning. Professor Victor Adetola, Senior Fellow, Center for Advocacy and Development, and Professor of Political Science at the University of Jos. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us along the line of Osun's governorship election. And now, via Zoom, we had from Osogbo, NIOB, of course, he's a regular here, Country Director, Action Aid, and the convener of Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room. We appreciate you for coming this morning. Now, let's take some foreign tidbits.